Hi guys, so this video is sponsored by Hey Dudes. I'm joking, I'm joking. I'm never gonna be sponsored. Anyways,
You don't know that. Hey. I'm gonna give you a quick little pep talk. Don't talk yourself down like that. You always gotta keep a positive mindset, even in the roughest of times. Ugh.
and sometimes I
Um,
wonder why you don't have a
yeah,
girlfriend.
no. You know, I do too.
Stay
I do
a
too.
little silent. Well, anyways, welcome to Scary TikTok Stories. What Nigel is trying to get at is that he likes me. Anyways, sorry, Nigel.
This is the most scary and dangerous animal to ever live on Earth. This is Titanoboa. This is an ancient snake that lived over
I
58
like
million years
snakes.
ago. And according to scientists, for nearly 10 million years,
Oh,
it was the
snakes are
largest
icky.
predator on the planet.
What if they were
Titanoboa's
fuzzy?
length was 43 feet long, and its weight was
That'd be
well over a ton.
fucking
This snake
terrifying.
was so big that you can lay two drafts on the ground, and Titanoboa will still be longer. If you still can't comprehend how big this snake was, on the left is a vertebrae of an anaconda, which is the biggest snake on the planet right now, and on the right is the vertebrae of Titanoboa. It is so much more bigger than the anacondas. Titanoboa was 3 feet in width, and Titanoboa can swallow a hippopotamus whole. Titanoboa was a bloodthirsty predator who ate everything in water and land.
Like the
Everybody on Earth
Tanaboa.
is super lucky Titanoboa is not around anymore.
Tit.
This is the scary story about the hairdo. There was a
Oh my
middle-aged
god, it's the
woman who
Tanaboa?
always
Like,
wore her hair in a
bro,
bun.
shut up.
She was very proud of her hairdo and thought she was the most fashionable of all her friends. The woman was very lazy, and she didn't like spending the time cleaning her hair or styling it. Instead, she just left her hair how it was, and she never even washed it. Whenever she took a shower, she would wear a shower cap so the water didn't mess up her hair. After a while, her hair began to smell, so she used hairspray to cover the smell. One morning, the woman did not come down for breakfast, so her husband went up to the bedroom to wake her up. To his horror, he discovered that his wife had died during the night. At first, the police thought she might have had a heart attack. However, when they conducted an autopsy, they examined her hair and found something terrifying. A black widow spider made a nest in her hair and laid many eggs. When the baby spiders hatched, they had bitten through her skull and ate their way into her brain.
Cool.
This is a scary story about the strange
Oh,
dream. One summer day, a kid named Chris lost his footing and fell off a cliff. He landed on a ledge
oh.
and it saved his life, but he was badly injured and had to be rescued. He hit his head on the fall and he was unconscious. The doctors found swelling in his brain, and he had to get surgery immediately. After the surgery, he went into a coma. A few days later, he recovered, and his friend went to go visit him in the hospital. Chris then told him about the strange dream he had while he was unconscious. In the dream, he was at a train station. There was nobody else in sight. When the train pulled up to the station, he got in. There was nobody on the train. He was completely alone. Then he heard a crackling voice on the speakers. It said, "Next stop, final stop. Next stop, end of line." Something about the announcement sent a chill down his spine, and he jumped out of his seat and managed to get off the train. Just as the doors were closing, he woke up from his coma. The doctor said he was between life and death. He then said to his friend, "If I hadn't gotten off that train, I believe the end of the line meant I would have died."
This is
That's
why you
fucking
always
deep.
say yes to
Mr.
tandoori chicken.
Bullet!
In 2012, a high school tutor and her student stayed up so late one night studying that by the time they were done, the buses had stopped running. Without another way home, the student asked if he could stay the night at her place. Reluctantly, she agreed. When they got back to the apartment, she fell asleep on her bed and he fell asleep on a blanket next to her bed on the ground. A few hours later, she wakes up to the boy standing awkwardly in the middle of the room with a very strange look on his face. She asks him, "What's wrong?" He looks at her and says, "I'm really hungry. Let's go get some tandoori chicken." Confused, she says, "It's 2 a.m. Just get a snack in the cupboard." And he
Tandoori chicken.
grabs her by the arm and he says, "No, we are getting tandoori chicken right
No.
now." And he yanks her from
We
the
are
bed.
getting
Feeling
tandoori
totally
chicken
caught off
right
guard by
now,
this
you
whole
fucking
situation,
bitch.
she goes into the hall with the boy, and as
Don't
soon
you
as the
dare
door
say
shuts
no.
behind them, she can tell that he is terrified. He looks at her and just says, "I'm not actually hungry. When I woke up, there was someone under your bed."
This has to be the worst form of torture ever. I still can't believe that this form of torture is real and is this bad. The form of torture I'm talking about is white room torture.
No, it's not.
It is basically where prisoners are isolated in white rooms, wear white clothes, and eat white food from white plates. Now you might be thinking, how could this be that bad? Well, white room torture is a form of psychological torture concerning complete isolation and sensory deprivation of the prisoners. So you see nobody else and you hear absolutely nothing except for yourself. All you get served too is white rice on a white plate. Oh, and if you need to go to the bathroom, they'll slip you a white paper under the door for you to poop on, and then you slip it right back under when you're done. This form of torture is so bad that the prisoner loses his own identity in the process. You cannot remember who you are, and you can't remember any of your family. The result of this torture is the loss of identity and forgetting everything you ever knew. You come out of this room a completely different person.
That's terrifying.
Yes, the picture at the end
It's
is
like the
real.
water.
In
It's like the water
1876, a
torture
woman from a
method, where
very
like they get
prominent family
like the
in Paris
dripping
goes
of
missing.
water
After
onto your
years go by
forehead.
and no one has
You know
a
how
clue what
crazy that
happened to
is?
this woman, friends and family ultimately mourn.
You're gonna love a pardon evil, then.
Because they like drip water onto your head, and eventually it'll start caving in or driving the person insane. That's an old Chinese fucking torture technique. Or there's the iron
Oh.
bull. Holy crap! The iron bull or the
Leland
brass bull, I
Townsend
think it
does
was
that
called.
to someone in Evil. He does the water torture thing.
That's fucked, man. That's fucked. That's the
Does it
worst
to
way to
America, we
die.
know. Anyways.
Mourn her death and move on. 25 years later, and this anonymous letter shows up on the Attorney General's desk, claiming that the missing woman's family had a secret. Intrigued by the letter, the police go to the family's home, show it to them, and ask to search the property, to which they say, go for it. They search, they don't find anything, but on the way out, they notice something very peculiar. At the end of some stairs was a door that was padlocked shut. When the family refused to open it, the police break it down and make a horrifying discovery. Cowering on a rotten straw mattress in a pitch black room was the missing woman, now 50 years old and extremely malnourished. Her mother had imprisoned her there after they had fought over her boyfriend, and she had not seen sunlight or another human being in 25 years.
Well, how did she eat? Oh no, no, wait, gay ads.
Normal looking photos that have a disturbing backstory, Part 8. This shadow is permanently etched on the steps of Hiroshima following the nuclear explosion that killed over 70,000 people. The boy in this photo is Estevan Reiner. The Nazis who took his photo made him put this uniform on, smile for the picture, and knew exactly what his fate would be. 2 weeks later, he was killed in a gas chamber. A similar story for this girl whose photo was just taken by a Nazi photographer after Germany had just invaded Poland. You can tell by her smile that she had no idea what was to come. This photo shows 3 young girls smiling together for a selfie. On the right hand side of the photo, you can see a light which is the headlight of a train which hits them moments later. While this photo appears to be just an ordinary large class photo, the 2 boys at the top left are responsible for the Columbine High School shooting, which at the time was the worst high school shooting in American history and killed 12 students and 1 teacher.
They're pointing.
Now, don't be
made a
fooled
song
by this
about that.
photo, because this story is called The Demon Dog. For the short term they knew him, they called him Shanks. So if you haven't guessed it yet, Shanks is an American pit bull. But ever since Mark found Shanks, there was just something off. See, Shanks was fit, tough, and a very strong looking dog. But when you looked into his eyes, there was something evil that wanted to get out. But Shanks was a stray. He was found covered in blood months ago. The vet said that it was blood from a carcass or something that he had eaten to try and survive. But after we saw Shanks attack Robin Warmont while she was hanging out her washing, we knew it wasn't for survival. You see, Robin was 8 months pregnant when Shanks hunted her down and attacked her. Police said that they couldn't even recognize her once he'd finished ripping her apart. And unfortunately, neither her or her unborn baby survived. Since he ran away that day, 3 of his past owners have stepped forward, all with gruesome stories about Shanks. And all have refused to describe to police what he looks like, because he still stalks. In 2012, 2 brothers were playing in the backyard when they noticed their dog digging next to the shed. The dad was so frustrated by this, he put up a fence from the dog. The dog broke down the fence and he kept digging up. What's crazy is the dog collapsed and died in the hole. And this is where this story about the shed gets freaky. A week or so later, some friends came over with their dog too, and their dog did the same thing and died in the hole as well. Hearing the children cry, the neighbour came over and he explained to them about the prior owners of the house. He told them that the owner had killed stray dogs and buried them underneath the house. The parents were disturbed by this, so they contacted the police. When they started digging up the shed, they not only found a pet cemetery, but they also found bodies in the backyard. Police went next door to question the old man that had come over and told him all about the pet cemetery, but turns out he had died more than 10 years ago.
This is a creepy story about the first boyfriend. There was a girl named Rachel who just got her first boyfriend. She was so happy and never felt this way before in her life. Every day she brought him over her house, and her dad began to get annoyed because she wasn't spending that much time with him anymore. One day, Rachel's dad told her that her boyfriend was not allowed over the house anymore. Rachel began screaming and crying and ran up the stairs and went to her room. A couple days later, Rachel decided to sneak her boyfriend in the house one night. When her boyfriend got to the house, Rachel tiptoed down the stairs and let him in. Then they went to her room. About 30 minutes later, her boyfriend had to go to the bathroom. Rachel whispered to him to be quiet. After 10 minutes, her boyfriend was still not back, so she went out to see what was taking him so long. But right when she opened her door, her dad was standing there covered in blood, and behind him laid her boyfriend's dead body. Her dad then looked at her with a smile on his face and said, "Nobody will ever take my little girl from me."
Bro.
Here's the truth behind Minions. So we all remember Minions from Despicable Me, but they're not what you think they are. The truth is, Minions are based off a horrific Nazi experiment that took place in 1944. This crazy German scientist manipulated Jewish kids and turned them into slaves. Heavy metal helmets would be forced onto the children so they can't speak or see properly. The helmets were so heavy that they'd stunt the children's growth, so they'd be short, just like Minions.
Said that with
I
like
can
a
guarantee
smile.
that the end of this video is
Minions,
going
like,
to
okay.
shock you. There was a
Wow.
young girl who had trouble making friends because her mom wouldn't let her play with the other kids in the neighborhood. One day, the mom left to go to the store, so she snuck outside of the house. She grabbed her teddy bear and went outside, but still, none of the kids wanted to play with her. Eventually, a strange boy approached her and said that he wanted to be her friend. The little girl was thrilled to finally have a friend her age, and he eventually asked if she wanted to come to his house to play. When they arrived, the little girl was confused, because the house appeared to be abandoned like no one had been in there for years. They walked into his garden and immediately the girl threw up. She asked him for some water and he just smiled at her creepily and said, "You're going to sleep here sometime soon." Weeks later, the girl went looking for him and he was nowhere to be found. Soon, a paper airplane flew to her and it was a newspaper clipping. She opened it up to find that the boy she'd been playing with went missing 9 years ago.
Psychological problems.
Anyways, guys, thank you for watching this
I got a
wonderful
question.
video.
Weren't you in choir?
No,
What was? Oh,
totally
what's a
not.
spot in choir again? What's like the?
There's alto, there's baritone, and then there's soprano. That's how they did it in my old school.
I
Guess
swear
when
you
I
told
was.
me you were a soprano.
Shut up! Shut up!